Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dream Crushers podcast. Today, we're going to kind of go in a different direction with this. We're going to touch on some different subjects.
Normally we try to stick to more of a motivation mindset kind of thing, and in light of recent events, we're going to focus a little bit more on technology and the role it plays in parenting and your life in general. Right, it's May 20th, just a couple days ago. There's been yet another school shooting, and apologize in advance for the military training going on behind us. That's going to be fun. But a couple days ago there was yet another school shooting, and we're not really going to focus a whole lot on the shooting itself. It seems like the media and people nowadays really want to take control of the school shooting thing, which makes absolutely perfect sense. Of course we want to do that, but I think everybody's looking in the wrong place. We're both big gun people, so obviously we're not gonna, be thrilled about giving up guns and stuff like that, but I don't even really think that's the point. I don't think either one of us thinks that taking away guns is gonna help, but I think more importantly we should be focusing on the students themselves, their mental state nowadays. What's different about kids nowadays versus many years ago? So this seems to be a very new thing, and something had to have changed, and really the only thing that I can see that has changed is basically how kids are growing up nowadays, with borderline lack of parenting.
Yeah, I agree. Even from back when, there's quite an age difference between me and Aaron, and just the way that we grew up was a lot different than the way a lot of people are growing up today. And even before that, when our parents grew up, I have parents and friends of parents that talk about back when they were in high school, growing up in certain places. It wasn't uncommon to bring your rifle to school if you were planning on going hunting after school, or even if you were like selling your gun to a friend. You bring it to school, you put it in your locker, and then when school's over, you take your gun out, you sell it to your friend, or you go hunting, or whatever you're doing. And it's like there wasn't a problem like this back then. And while a lot of people do want to point at the guns, it doesn't really seem to make sense when you think about situations like that, where it's not like the guns weren't there. They were there even more. When I went to school, obviously you couldn't bring a gun to school and have it in your locker. That was not something that was okay. And yet back then it was semi-normal, and it was never a problem. And so it seems like the problem goes deeper than that. And we try not to get super political here, and we're not really into all that, but we just like kind of making people think, and it creates thoughts ourselves, and we enjoy talking with other people and gaining new perspectives on things. And we're just kind of hoping to talk about things, stir up maybe a little bit of controversy, a little bit of conversation, get people thinking. And again, we're not here to disrespect anybody. Our condolences go out to all the families and stuff that are affected by this. It's definitely not a time to be super political and be arguing over dumb things, when we should be looking after the people first and foremost. But yeah, it's just something that's interesting, and we've talked about it a lot between ourselves, and it's something that I think that we all need to look into. What's it stemming from? Mm-hmm. It's got to be at the baseline of people.
See, I don't want to get all emotional about shit, but it's again, I had a thought a minute ago though. When you're talking about your parents bringing guns to school and stuff, was it in the rules, or was it just so commonplace that, and the actual violence part of it wasn't even an issue, so they didn't even create rules yet for that?
Yeah, I think it was more like that.
Or were these kids actually being
I think it was just kind of, they hadn't made any rules for it because there was never a problem. And so it was just kind of commonplace almost. It wasn't that big of a deal. You just kind of, did stuff. And it's like when, I mean, not to go like on the complete opposite spectrum, it's like when, like fidget spinners or whatever first come out and kids are bringing them to school. It's like nobody knew what that was.
Right.
They weren't like a problem. It wasn't a distraction because they didn't really exist or whatever. And then it's like once they become a problem or people see it as a distraction, then they make a rule for it. I think it was kind of like that. There was never a problem, and so there wasn't a rule for it, and so.
So I was talking to somebody last night, which is hilarious because it was shortly after you first told me your story about your parents or whatever, and back in the day. This person was much younger, more my age, but I guess in Texas it's a much more regular thing that in the parking lot, like 50% of the trucks in the parking lot had their deer hunting rifle in the back. So it's just fascinating. This is what really brings to my mind, and I think this is a point of this whole podcast, is just to try to start a conversation in places that I think matter more. That sounds crappy. I should try to figure out how to word that better. I think it's something that everybody needs to focus on more, rather than, I feel like controlling guns and the metal detectors and stuff like that, I think is a fantastic idea and stuff like that. But all these things that first pop into people's minds are some kid went into a school and shot people with a gun, so if the gun wasn't there, then it wouldn't have happened. And I feel like it's too late, obviously. I mean, you need to think before it happens. Why is this stuff happening to begin with?
It's kind of the effect when we should be looking at the cause originally.
Exactly.
Trying to stop that.
So, I mean, what's happened? So we've got parents and older people, and even some people my age, apparently, in certain parts of the U.S., they've been bringing guns forever, and yet this hasn't been an issue, and now suddenly it is. So there's something big that has changed, and I hate to push my own agenda, but it seems like definitely parenting, the advent of social media in the past few years, it's crazy. I think, I want to point out Simon Sinek is somebody that I listen to all the time. I think I shared a couple of videos with you. I would like a lot of people to go listen to his stuff because he's definitely a much better speaker than I am, and he's got some amazing views on the effect of social media. And I imagine they could just be opinions, but I think his stuff is based more on study and stuff, unlike me. My stuff is mainly just opinions and seeing stuff with my own kids and stuff like that. But he talks about the effect of social media and the kids and phones in general, just having their phone out all the time. I'm not going to pick on my own family, but I've seen it where the phone is out all the time, and I can see how that would be really frustrating to not have that. And also in my own life, if you have an account on social media and you follow certain people, you realize that they post the best stuff, the best food and the best events, and they go to concerts and new relationships and stuff like that, and it's just all the good stuff, and not a whole lot of people post the not so great stuff. And so it just makes you, when you're looking at it, make your life feel not quite as shiny.
Yeah, it's kind of an unreal representation of what life is today, almost.
Exactly. I mean, everything is fake. It's like a lot of news. News is tailored to make people feel what the news wants them to feel.
Yeah.
In many cases, not all cases, but I feel like that's the same thing. I do it myself. I do it myself. I run a fabrication business, and the pictures I post are my best welds and the coolest projects that I've worked on, and the small silly projects don't get posted because it's not fancy. And I see the same thing just in the fabrication world. I mean, this is a small little niche in this thing. I see other people's fabrication is so much better than mine, and it makes me feel bad about my own self, and it's my own stuff, my own projects and stuff like that. So it's like, I feel like that's got to play a big part. And if you listen to Simon Sinek, he says a lot of the same stuff that just the addiction to these phones it's not allowing kids to actually learn how to socialize and how to deal with stuff.
Yeah.
Real life stuff.
And I think to kind of halfway agree and maybe halfway not agree with what you're saying exactly, I think that there is somewhat of a problem with it, but I feel like it's not going to go away. So I think that like a lot of probably some like older people, they kind of wish things would go back to the way they were. No smartphones, get rid of social media, Facebook and everything, and go back so people can just have conversations with one another at the dinner table and all of this. And it's like, I think that's quite unreal as well. I think that you have to go along with technology, and it's not going to slow down for you just because you want it to. I think the key is to find balance in it and learn how to deal with it as it comes into our lives more and more. It really seems like inevitable, like we're heading towards, there's going to be more AI, there's self-driving cars that are already out, and it's like there's no stopping it. Technology is growing faster now than it has ever before in what we can see anyways. And so I think a big thing that I think it's growing faster than we know how to learn about it and learn how to live with it. I think somebody else was talking about that. I don't know if it was Elon Musk or maybe it was Sam Harris. I don't know. Somebody very intelligent was talking about how technology has grown so fast that we haven't been able to catch up with how to live with that technology yet. And I think that's something interesting to look at too. And again, maybe we need to look at all of the cases together of all the big events that are happening that are tragic, from shootings to bombings to terrorist attacks to whatever it is that's bad and violent, and try and break them down and see what they all have in common, at the base layer of the people. What relationships did they have? What role did their parents play? Did they not have parents? Kind of look at it more scientifically like this, and try and see what's going on. So if you feel like something's definitely changed with the people, like we said, and it's strange because in me and Aaron's life, we've both had hard times, breakups, going through the awkward years in middle school and high school where you're not the coolest, or you have acne, or some girl didn't want to go out with you and somebody called you stupid, and it all sucks, and it's an awful time because you are going through all these hormonal transitions, and it's like a confusing time of socially and physically everything is changing around you, and it is a lot for sure. 100%, it's a ton to deal with. But even then, like, it never crossed our mind that maybe we should go and kill somebody over it. It was more kind of like you were just sad about it for a little bit, and then somehow you kind of figured your way out of it. And I think we need to kind of find a way to get back to that. As sad and depressing as that sounds, like, life isn't always about being at your happiest. I think it is important to have hard times and low and be sad. And I don't wish that anybody ever be hurt, but it is hard times that build character and should create you into the person that you are as an adult. And I think that middle school and high school time is an important time for that, and learning that you don't just get to go and just kill everybody because they were mean or whatever your reasoning is. You have to learn how to deal with it. You have to cope with it. And then when you come out on the other side, you realize that you're a better person for it. And when another situation like that comes along, it's way easier. It's always the hardest the first time. And then you learn and you grow, and the stronger and stronger you get with it. And, it's like a whole mental mindset. And I think we need to kind of get back to that, preparing kids for this mindset. I feel like one of the problems with technology is that, and I've seen it, even in my personal life, it's so easy just to, as you're raising children, to almost let the phone raise them, or you know, the phone is the babysitter now. You know, when your kid is doing whatever and you're trying to get work done, or you're trying to do something and you're busy, instead of, you know, saying, oh, you know, go outside and use your mind to be creative or do something, it's like, oh, here, you know, just look at this for a little bit. And there's so much stimulus coming from technology, it's like kids just fully focus on that. And I feel like it's gotten easier and easier to do that, where people have spent less and less time actually physically teaching their kids something, or like talking to them and telling them things. It ends up like, when you really sit down and look at your life, and if you have kids, just take a step back and look at it. How much time are they spending looking at like the TV or the internet or the phone, as opposed to looking at you, you know? Way back before all of this, and again, we can't get rid of it all, but we have to find a better way to use it. And it's like, back before we had all of it, you know, when the kids had a question, they came up and asked you. They couldn't just Google it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that dependency has kind of created this strange gap from parents and children, and they no longer like look to you for answers and stuff. And I think that's important for like building a bond and being able to come to you when they do have problems, instead of just running to the internet and like talking shit on Instagram or whatever. You know, they can come talk to you and whatever. And I definitely don't have the answer as to what to do or why, but I think that that's kind of an area we need to look at, you know, just kind of self-analyze everything and just try and be better for our children, because that's really the only way to solve the problems of today, is to raise the next generation better than we did the last, or ourselves. You know, you kind of have to, it's a constantly kind of look ahead to the future, making the future better. We got to make the kids better to make the future better.
So, not to repeat too much, but again, that's, I feel like that is at least my personal goal for this video, is just to get people to ask different questions. Because like you said, the phones aren't going away. In fact, it might get, it's going to get worse or better. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's an amazing thing. Technology is fantastic. I absolutely love it, because I've never been more knowledgeable than since Google came around. So I mean, there's so many good things that outweigh the bad, but it's the lack of parenting and the cell phone babysitter thing that I think is a huge issue. So it's,
and I think something to point out too, it's not that parents are being bad parents in the sense that they're mean to their children,
or that they're I totally disagree, but yeah, okay.
That they're like trying to you know, be bad parents. You know, I think a lot of it comes down to you don't even realize what's happening. It all just kind of happens so quick and smoothly. The transition, it all just kind of sneaks in, you know, and it's like, it just takes, you have to look inward, you know. Every once in a while you have to ask yourself, am I still doing what I thought that I was going to be doing as a parent when I first had a kid? You know, I think it's important to constantly kind of reevaluate and look at things.
I think if parenting seems super easy to you, you're probably doing it wrong. That's my own personal feeling. It's like, parenting is not easy. There's a lot of,
I would agree.
Like, my wife would know that, she does homework with my squeaklet all the time, and so I mean, she realized that aspect of it, but I mean, there's so many more layers that's there that would make parenting super hard. And that's
when you get into like super in-depth, where you're analyzing where they're at on a constant basis, I think that's important too. Almost maybe even more than analyzing yourself, analyzing where your kids are at, you know, noticing things. If you notice, okay, like they're being a little bit more quiet today, and like, obviously don't get crazy and just bug them about stuff all the time, because they're just going to kind of shell up and not want to talk about anything ever. But it's like, if you pay attention to your kids really and truly, and you notice that something's slightly off, and it's easy to be like, you know, you just kind of make something up in your head. You know, they probably just are a little bit tired. You know, they probably just had a bad day. It was probably no big deal. They haven't said anything to me, so it's not. I think as parents, it's part of your responsibility to dig a little bit, you know, pry, because I've learned, as being a kid, and my parents talking to me, And me talking to my parents, I've learned that, like, as a kid, like, honestly, you do want to talk to your parents. A lot of the times you do want to talk to somebody or to your parents, but you almost like don't feel quite comfortable enough. But with just a little bit of asking, just a little bit of prying, you kind of open up. And I've experienced this with kids that I've raised, and it's like, you know, if you just ask a little bit and you get them talking, a lot of the time, like, they'll tell you everything, and like even down to like telling you all the stuff that their friends told them, or something that you wouldn't think that they would share with you because like it might get them in trouble or whatever. It's like the kids really do enjoy talking, and I think that's important, like kind of prying a little bit and making sure that you're paying attention to where they're at on a constant basis, noticing little changes.
So getting involved with your kids is a huge thing, obviously, which is pretty much what you're saying. I think that's an interesting topic, though. How far is too far? Because I mean, there's the poking and prodding so much where they're going to do the exact opposite. Close up like a bank.
Yeah, you
and
don't
you're not
want
going to be able to get anything out of them. But completely hands off is absolutely not the right way to do it.
Yeah, I think that there definitely needs to be kind of, you pry to a sense where you just extremely let them know that you're there to listen. And and I think it's important to not jump to anger about anything, because that is the best way to get your kids to not ever want to talk to you. It's super important. It's like that first time that they're honest with you and you snap at them, it's like that puts a flag in the sand, like, okay, not doing that again. That was pointless. I told the truth. I did what they always told me to do, and they yelled at me. Like, I did not get the result that I wanted.
Yeah.
That was awful. I'm just not going to tell them then. And I think that's something too, is that we need to remember that kids are not just like, I think it's easy to just look at a kid and be like, oh, like they're not an adult yet, so they're just kind of a dumb kid, you know. They don't really know. They don't know a lot of stuff. They don't know as much as me. But I think it's a better perspective to look at them as tiny people, tiny adults. Their brains they're a lot smarter than we give credit for, and they pick up on so many things even before all of the communication skills are there, and the big words that we use and throw around and we think we're smart. They have like all of the capabilities of communication. It's just different from what we use. So they pick up on body language and other things, I think, a lot better than maybe even adults do, because that's kind of all that they have, and tones and different things like that. And so I think if you talk to your kids as a small, intelligent human, they'll understand a lot more from you. And you won't just be like, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people don't explain something to their kid, or they don't want to teach them something because they think that they won't understand it. Like, for example, I had a buddy, his dad was a tailor. He was a custom tailor, apparently very good. And when my friend was a kid, he said, Dad, he said, I want to do what you do. I want to learn how to sew. And he said, no, you can't do it. It's too hard. Like, don't do it. And looking back, I don't know if it's because he just didn't want him to follow in the same kind of career footsteps as him, maybe. Maybe he wanted something better for him that he thought. I don't know. But to me, it was kind of like, kids pick up on stuff so fast, for one. And I think the biggest way to crush their esteem and crush them ever wanting to do new things is telling them that they can't do it before you let them try. I think it's important to say, okay, yeah, for sure. Like, I'll show you. You might not be that good at it right now when we try it and you try it out. That's okay. But one day you will be, or one day you could be if you really tried at it. I've been doing it for a really long time, and so it took me a long time. You know, it's like when a kid's trying to learn how to tie his shoes and the kid wants to try it and the parent's like, oh, you're going to do it too slow, and they just do it for him. It's like, oh, don't do that. Like, they're never going to learn that way. You got to let them do it. You got to let them fail. Failing is okay. Failing is a good thing. The only way that you learn is by failing a lot of times. I heard someone say once that the people who are the greatest have failed more than the people who aren't that good have ever tried. And it's like, oftentimes we see winners as the people who just won. They didn't lose, they won.
Right.
And it's like a binary. It's half and half. You either won or you lost. And it's like, no, they just failed and never gave up until they won. And just having that mindset to just keep trying and doing stuff. And so coming back to the original point, I think it's important that we let kids explore. I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say, we stop kids from learning science at a very young age. You know, they go and they grab a stick and they start banging on a pot and they're learning about acoustics. And you say, no, don't do that. You're making all this racket. Stop doing that. You know, they take an egg and they drop it on the floor and it splats. They're learning about physics, but you say, no, clean that up. Don't do that. You know, we stop them from learning. You know, it's like we try and stop them from learning more than we teach them almost. And I think that if we can figure out a way to be better about teaching them things, having them learn better, they'll pick up on other things better and be overall more open-minded and just better people.
This may be totally inaccurate, trying to counteract what you just said, or not necessarily counteract, but don't you think that alone is affected by phones? You're gonna get the point that I am borderline anti-phone. I'm not anti-phone. Again, they have great things, but as far as kids go, you know, I'm kind of in the camp that I think kids under 18, maybe 16, something like that, shouldn't have phones, because I see it in my house. They're not learning about physics and acoustics on the phone. They're seeing other people's lives. They're watching stupid videos and stuff like that. This is absorbing their entire life. So all the learning that you and I did, playing outside and stuff like that, you know, it's just play for us. But like you said, we were learning.
Yeah.
They're not getting that, because they're in their bedroom all day long with their friends all day long. So they're not communicating. They're not learning how to communicate with people. They're not learning the stuff that we learned. Simple stuff like riding a bike and stuff like that. I mean, this stuff is not happening, and I can only see one reason. So, not to sound so get rid of the phones, but I mean, I can't see anything. That may just be stupidity and narrow-mindedness.
I feel like it kind of comes down to you stop learning about physical consequences. You stop learning physically. So on the phone, a kid could look up a video on YouTube about how to ride a bicycle, and they could probably learn pretty well how to ride a bicycle on YouTube. But if they didn't go out and do it physically, and they didn't crash and bust their chin open, they would not know the importance of not falling, because it was just a video, and even if the person fell in the video, it doesn't really affect them. And I think solidifying things into the physical world is like a very important thing. And that goes along with other lessons that you learn, you know, with talking to people. And things are different face-to-face. Conversations are different face-to-face. There are consequences when you talk to somebody. If you walk up to somebody, and I didn't know Aaron, and I said, hey, guy, you're a piece of shit, and he pops me in the mouth, I'm going to learn, maybe I shouldn't walk up to strangers and call them a piece of shit, you know? But if you're online, you just, you're a piece of shit, and they're like, fuck you, whatever. And, you know, nothing's learned. There's no consequences, there's no face-to-face. And again, we're not getting rid of that, but I think it's important to learn to find the balance in both. Like Aaron said, I don't know if maybe we should stop having kids use phones altogether, but maybe teach them both sides of it. You know, okay, you can have the phone, but today it's time, we're gonna go outside, I'm gonna teach you how to ride a bicycle. And that really comes down to the parents, you know. We like to blame the phones, oh, these kids, they're always on their phone, what do you do? Something about it. If you're the parent, you can make them not be on that phone. It's not that difficult, you know. It sucks at first because they're gonna kick and scream, it's not fair, all my friends have phones, you know. I don't wanna learn how to ride a bicycle, all my friends learn how to ride a bicycle on YouTube, I just wanna do that. It's like, it really comes down to you and your decisions, you know, and you know, I let stuff slide all the time, you know, it's easy. Again, parenting is difficult, but it's important, you know. Some of the most important things in life that you do are not going to be easy. They're not supposed to be easy. Things are learned from difficult tasks, and you grow as a person. When you parent a child and you teach them something, and when they look back at you and you know that they understand exactly what you just said to them, there's something inside of you that changes, something grows, and something that wasn't ever there before. It's totally different from anything else that you've ever done. And if you're not a parent, or you haven't raised a kid or somebody else's kid, or hung out with somebody and showed a kid something and they got it, I mean, I challenge you to go out and do that first, because it is an amazing feeling when you show a kid something and they learn, and you're showing something person to person and you're developing a small human. It is incredible.
So from a non-professional, I'm just going to give some advice. You know, and I'm not going to give advice. I'm just going to tell you what's going to happen in our household. And it's to create that, what Kyle just said, more of that. And the phone is out all day long, and that's not going to happen anymore. I don't have the schedule down yet. I need to talk to the wife, but dinner's out. There's not going to be any phones, because me personally, that might be a different level. I feel offended that they want to play with their phone instead of, talk to us. But I think it's also important to learn to talk. So at dinners, there's not going to be any phone. Dinners at home, obviously, there's not going to be any phone. And we talked shortly about certain amounts of time on the phone, as in, like, the first 3 hours home from school, there's no phone. You need to focus on your homework and stuff like that. You don't need to be on YouTube while doing homework and stuff like that. So learn what you're supposed to be learning there.
Yeah.
Maybe start small, and like the rest of the night is phone time, but then 2 hours before bedtime, there's no phone again. Just to try to create more life without the phone. And that's pretty much the only goal.
More balance, basically. And again, what you just saw here, Aaron just made a decision. We didn't talk about this beforehand. One of the big reasons that we're doing this whole podcast is because me and him are learning through doing it as well. And it's very interesting, just talking about things out loud. It creates thoughts in ourselves, and then we make changes too. We're all just people here. We're just like you guys, and so this is like one of the reasons that we're doing it, just to learn ourselves.
So what can we leave these people with? Anything? I do feel guilty trying to tell people what to do. I feel like my thoughts... Well, I think everybody thinks their thoughts are great. But I do want to share my opinions, because I think they matter. Everybody thinks their opinions matter, though. But I guess what I would try to leave with you is to try to look at more things. Don't look at the obvious stuff.
Yeah, dig deeper. Look at the base, the root of everything.
There's causes for everything. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything... It's not just the final thing that we're trying to stop. I mean, yes, we are, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
you can't stop the event just by focusing on the event itself. There's other things, and stuff goes much, much deeper than that, whether we can see it or not. And I think that's where the open-mindedness thing comes in again. It's starting to think more, and honestly, listen to people. Again, I didn't want to turn this into a gun thing, but I listen to the anti-gun people. I think it's really smart to do that and hear their thoughts, as well as listening to other gun people, pro-gun people. And it's funny when you actually listen and not like try to find your own facts and your confirmation biases and stuff like that, you start seeing stuff. Like, there's a lot of gun people that I just want to punch in the mouth, because their arguments for why they should have a gun is just...
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that we're all people here. It doesn't matter if you're anti-gun person or you're a super pro-gun person. We're all people, and there's good people, there's bad people, there's people that are reasonable, and there's people that are just goofballs. They're idiots, It's just, they just don't make any fucking sense. So there's people like that on the anti-gun side. There's people like that on the gun side. So you need to look at a big group, instead of just, you saw some guy on the news with an NRA hat saying, I can have my fucking machine gun if I want to, because fuck you, that's why.
Yes,
it's
that's exactly what I'm getting at.
That person is just kind of at an unreasonable state, and that's not the total sum of all of people that are into guns. That is maybe an extremist or whatever, and they're just a silly person, And I think it's important not to get your view of gun people from the extremes. You have to kind of find some center. Like us, I would say that we're pretty reasonable people. a couple videos ago, we talked about meditation. You know what I mean? Is the guy that's on the poster saying fuck everybody, is he talking about meditation? Maybe, I don't know, but probably not. I don't know. So I think that having balance and looking at something more scientifically and deeply than just right at the surface level, the clickbait kind of things, you know. I don't know.
I think that's probably good for now. I think we're just gonna go in circles from this point on.
I agree.
So, hey guys, parent your kids. Get in there. Don't hound them. Don't scare them away, but be present. It's probably a good word. Just be present.
Yeah, be there.
It should be a challenging thing until they move out of the house. It's going to be rough. And so again, I feel like I look at my own life sometimes and I'm like, wow, this is a lot easier than I ever imagined it. And that like
triggers,
there's
like,
something wrong there.
Yeah, there's a problem then.
And I'm complaining at the same time that there's so much time on the phone. So clearly I need to fix some stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think either one of us is professional enough to say that this is what's happening in these school shootings.
Yeah,
but
we're just talking. We're
look
just
at it all.
Sharing opinions.
Look in your family, figure out what's different now in your family versus other kids, and don't immediately try to change other people's lives just to try to fix things. Just handle your kids. Because I was thinking about it last night actually, and I'm going to drag this on a little bit longer, that I feel like this kid got his guns from his parents. And you know his parents never would have thought that this would ever happen. And that's the scary part, is that if you're not part of your kids' lives, maybe the parents would never have known. You know what I mean? Maybe there's no signs or whatever. But to my fellow gun people, that's a wake-up call right there. Is don't just leave your guns laying around just because you think you know what's going on in your kids' lives. And this is, I think this will be, feel free to yell at me, but since I'm so pro-gun, I am totally fine still with gun control. Absolutely no gun banning. But I'd be willing to accept the fact that if my daughter takes up and shoots up the school, that my time will match hers. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
like in theory,
I kind of understand what you're saying.
I feel like at that point, obviously it's not their fault. They didn't pull the trigger, but they totally allowed it to happen. So
Yeah,
I cannot
I think,
imagine somebody getting a hold of my gun that was my responsibility and doing this. I'd be like, throw the book at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm curious
I feel like
to know what's
that
going to happen to this person.
I feel like that's a huge can of worms that should be tackled on something completely different. But I can see what you're saying. But I'll leave it at that, just because that can go so many different directions, and it's a very complicated
Bookmark
topic.
that, because that sounds like a good podcast.
Yeah, maybe we'll get back to that. But yeah. All right. So should I wrap it up?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good as it is. It's getting pretty long. So.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully this video made you think a little bit, maybe pissed you off a little bit, maybe, I don't know, just, you know, we just want to get the blood flowing in your brain a little bit, get you thinking about stuff, and we're okay with being a little edgy if we need to, and you know, we're not here
trying to piss people off,
and we're also not here to please people. You know,
no, absolutely not.
We kind of just do our own thing here, and we hope that people come, they enjoy it, they learn something from it, or maybe they don't enjoy it, but maybe they still take something away. But yeah, so go out there. This one got a little more, maybe a little more dark, a little more serious than some of the other things. A lot of our videos have kind of been uplifting, but we're not afraid to go to the dark corners of the room. We want to be able to talk about anything in life in general. So yeah, get out there, crush your dreams as a parent.
Yeah.
And get back to living.
Is that where you stopped last time?
Kind of.
Okay, do it again.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dream Crushers podcast. Today we're going to talk about some different subjects, touch on some different areas.
You didn't say it exactly the same. You threw me off.
It's all free flowing. I'm not
all right. Okay.
concrete. Just go when I look at you. I look at you and you talk.
Okay.
I can't wait to review this video and see whatever the f is in your pocket.